I don't want to see on this list. I like to watch TV. I like to go shopping. Those are things that are not really self-care. If you are sitting already in front of a screen for 7 or 8 hours in the day, sitting in front of another screen for another 3 hours, not moving your body is not a good way to practice self-care. Because self-care is really investing time in yourself. It's reflection. It could be journaling, could be even be a self-care item. When you pick the right self-care items that are right for you, then you will help your nervous system regulate itself. And that's why we're talking today in this podcast, because it is really, really important that you're starting to do that in order to show up differently. Do you consider yourself a high achiever, smart, driven, highly successful? I am so excited to have you. My name is Julia Arndt, and I'm the host of the Stress Podcast. I will help you develop your stress resilience the same way you've developed your workplace superpowers. Learn peak performance tools to thrive at work and in your personal life. Let's get started. Hi, and welcome back to Stressed. I'm Julia Arndt, your host, and I'm so excited that you are here today. In this podcast, I teach you how to manage stress, build mindful productivity systems, and leadership tools to build a balanced life and a thriving career. If you're here for the first time, welcome. I'm so excited that you are here. And if you are here for the 500th time or 100th time or second time, I'm equally as excited. Thank you for taking the time to invest in yourself, to invest time and just resources into your own personal development. This is the biggest gift that you can give to yourself. And I'm so grateful that I can be part of your journey. In today's podcast episode, I want to talk with you about how do you start regulating your nervous system. I published a podcast episode 2 weeks ago on the polyvagal theory, and we talked a lot about kind of the background of why you should invest in regulating your nervous system and why this is truly your next workplace superpower, your superpower in general, because you are going to be unstoppable if you learn how to do this on a daily basis. This is going to make all the difference. And I promise you that, and I know that because I have done that myself. And every time I do this, I'm not perfect at it. Sometimes I also get overwhelmed and stressed and too many things happen at the same time. But every time I get back into my center, every time I invest time in myself to be and to regulate my nervous system, I show up so much stronger for myself and for everyone that surrounds me. And so I'm really, really excited to record with you today a podcast on how to start regulating your nervous system. So now that we covered all of the foundations, and I'm not going to go into all of the foundations again because there was that specific podcast episode 30 minutes long on the polyvagal theory. Now we're getting into action. And I promised you that I'm going to record this podcast episode for you. And here we are. Here we are talking about regulating the nervous system. So I'm super, super excited to talk with you about the topic today. Before we do so, 2 things. Number 1, I hope that if you haven't done so yet, maybe it's the first time you're listening to this podcast, so you didn't know yet until this point, but I do hope that you are coming to register for the Plan Your Week with Julia sessions. Every Monday at 8 a.m. PST, so 8 a.m. California time zone, I host a 30-minute session to help you develop your next workplace superpower in a way. One of the skills, one of the tools that you need in order to get there, which is time and calendar management. A lot of my clients, a lot of people that listen to my content struggle with time and calendar management. You may struggle with it as well. Maybe you find it hard to find even time for yourself during the week. And so you find it hard to regulate your nervous system. And that's why we are starting to create space for you. And that's exactly what we do in these Plan Your Week with Julia sessions. It's for free. And I truly facilitate the session with the sole purpose of helping you to build this new time management habit. Because I know that it will make all the difference for you. So come and join us. You find the link to register for the sessions below, and I can't wait to see you in the sessions. That's number one. And then the second announcement that I want to share with you today is that I am a corporate trainer, and I am super passionate about bringing this kind of information to teams and help teams develop their next workplace superpower. I am super passionate about helping teams develop their competitive edge and differentiator to any other companies and teams and businesses out there. I truly believe that you can do that with your nervous system, because your nervous system is actually the set point on how far you can go. If you are feeling overwhelmed and in a stress state, in a fear state, in a highly emotional state, you can't think logically, you can't focus and concentrate, you can't get your work done, your performance will suffer, you'll probably feel more unhappy, more disengaged, and you're probably thinking about leaving your job and doing something completely different. So I come in to help teams and leaders understand the tools that they need to build in order to get out of that negative cycle. So if you are working for a company, if you are leading a team, if you are part of a team, and you find this information extremely interesting and helpful, then I would love to hear from you and I would love to chat with you. Let's talk about how we can bring a program into your own team to help you build a competitive edge to today's world. All right. So with that said, let's jump into today's podcast episode on how do you start regulating your nervous system. Enjoy today's podcast episode, and I hope to see you next week. Hi, and welcome back. I am so excited that you are taking some time to spend with me. Thank you for that. I'm so grateful. No matter where you are right now, no matter if you are sitting on a train or you're sitting in the car or you're laying on the bed listening to this podcast episode, or maybe you're walking outside in nature or in a city and you just felt like, I want to listen to a podcast, and maybe you felt like listening to this particular episode because it really sparked your interest. I'm so glad it did, because nervous system regulation is such a cool, important topic. And if you want to understand the foundations of nervous system regulation, and if you want to understand something that's called the polyvagal theory, don't be scared off by that name. It's actually pretty simple. Then make sure that you listen first to my podcast episode from 2 weeks ago in order to kind of understand the foundations of why are we talking about the specific tools on how to regulate your nervous system, right? I think it's really important to understand those. And then you can jump into kind of this next step, which is, okay, now that you understand the foundations and you've built some awareness, what tools do you have available to start regulating your nervous system? And I want to talk with you about a couple of those today, 5 to 7 different ways on how you can regulate the nervous system. And I will share as much personal stories and experiences with you as possible around my own journey that I've had with these different tools. The first thing that I want to share with you today on how you can start regulating your nervous system is by spending more time outside, spending more time in nature. Because being in nature can help you to reduce stress and anxiety. So many studies have shown that spending time in nature can lower blood pressure, your heart rate, and your cortisol levels. So no matter if you go for a walk in the park, or you sit by a river, or you hike in the mountains, it doesn't matter as long as you spend time outside in nature because it truly helps you to regulate your nervous system. It helps you to get into a parasympathetic state, the rest and digest, growth and repair state, where you can operate from such a more powerful point. And by the way, all of the tools that I'm going to share with you today are to bring you back into the parasympathetic, relaxed social state. Because think about it. When you are in that state, how much better can you show up? Right? How much better can you show up when you are rested, when you feel refreshed, when you feel energized, when you feel good about yourself? You will show up so differently. You'll show up with more confidence, with a feeling of worthiness that comes from within you rather than from outside of you. And you're gonna crush it. You're gonna crush every meeting, everything that you are planning to do. You will handle it so much better when it comes from a place of equilibrium and homeostasis, which basically means balance, right? So all of the tools that I share with you today are that way. They are there to help you regulate your nervous system. And I'm mentioning to you the first thing, which is spending time in nature first, because it is kind of an easy thing to do. I didn't tell you to go exercise, which some of you might not enjoy exercising, and that's totally okay. I told you to simply go outside and be in nature, no matter if you are moving your body or if you're just sitting in nature. There are so many benefits to doing that I would really love to encourage you to get outside 15 to 30 minutes a day. I think studies have shown that when you spend about 20 to 25 minutes in nature, that's when the positive effects really kick in. And you're going to feel so different, because I know as you're listening to this podcast right now, you're probably someone that spends a lot of time in front of your computer, in front of your screen, no matter if it is your phone notifications, in meetings, right? All of these different things are happening in your day on a daily basis. And you find it maybe hard to step outside. You may find it even hard to find time to step outside in the first place because you feel so busy and your calendar is so crammed full of stuff that you feel like there is literally no time to do that. And that's why I invited you at the beginning and in the intro of today's podcast to the Plan Your Week with Julia sessions, because they will help you to create that space. And that is why mindful productivity is an integral part of regulating your nervous system. It's an integral part of my method. I call it the peak performance method, in order to help you build those new systems and habits and tools. Okay. Spending time in nature. The second one that I want to share with you, that might not come as a surprise to you, but I am going to mention it anyway, because I know that some of you might still struggle with that. And it is getting enough sleep. Sleep is honestly the biggest kept secret to high performance. People think, you may think, the more I work, the more I get done. So I'm going to cut everything else out. I'm not going to spend time on my own. I'm not going to exercise. I'm not going to go outside in nature. I'm not going to meditate. I'm not going to exercise. I am just going to work, and I'm going to sleep the least amount of hours possible, maybe 4 or 5, and then I'll get up and I'll work again. And you may think that is the solution to your time problem. I'm sorry to disappoint you, but numerous, so many studies have shown that sleep is the most important thing you can do for yourself. If you have no time for anything else when it comes to regulating your nervous system, then do this one thing: get enough sleep. Matthew Walker, a very popular scientist in this field that talks a lot about sleep, that wrote a book on why we sleep. Super, super cool guy. Highly encourage you to listen to him or to watch a podcast episode with him on the Joe Rogan podcast. Really, really cool episode and super, super informative. That will definitely sway you to spend more time sleeping. Listen to him. It's going to open your eyes tremendously. And why is that so important when we talk about regulating your nervous system? Because there are a lot of important processes that happen while you sleep, that your body is not able to take care of during the day. And if you give your body only 4 or 5 hours of rest, when you've already had a super stressful day and you have so many stress hormones in your body, you actually don't give your body enough time to recover. And recover is so important. And if you want to be an athlete, a corporate athlete, maybe not a professional athlete in the sports field, but you want to be a corporate athlete, then give yourself time to recover. Give yourself time to sleep. And with sleep comes, of course, getting ready for sleep, right? So planning a little bit ahead of time. When are you going to bed? What is your nighttime routine? How many hours do you sleep? When are you getting up? Do you set an alarm or do you wake up naturally? All of these different things are decisions that are important to make. And it always amazes me, first of all, how much sleep I actually need. I am someone that goes to bed super, super early and that probably sleeps between 8 to 10 hours every night. I love sleeping and it sets me up for success at the beginning of the day because I feel rested. I feel clear in my head. And we've all been there where we only get 3 or 4 hours of sleep. And the next day, or maybe the day after the next day, because it's usually not that first day when it happens, but oftentimes the next day, where you just feel so groggy and you have a hard time focusing. You start thinking about things and you forget them again. And we feel kind of drunk. And this is a lot what Matthew Walker talks about. Or I think his name is Matt Walker. He talks a lot about how it impacts you, how people that are sleep deprived shouldn't even drive a car because it's just like drinking under or driving under influence. That is how powerful sleep is. And that is why it is so, so important and such an important mention here at the beginning today of the podcast on how to regulate your nervous system. You help your nervous system regulate itself by giving it enough sleep. So do me a favor, if you are someone that is now feeling talk to directly because you think, yep, I am someone that does not prioritize sleep a lot and I think I don't need 7 to 8 hours. I am someone that only needs 4 to 5. Listen to that episode, Joe Rogan, Matt Walker, about sleep and be convinced otherwise, because he gives you a lot of research and insights into why you do not just need 4 or 5 hours. Very important. All right. So what is the next thing that you can do in order to regulate your nervous system? One thing that I find really important to mention is to reduce caffeine and alcohol. The longer I have been going down this self-discovery journey, the more I realize how alcohol and caffeine impacts me. 2 important things. Number 1, I do like alcohol and caffeine in the sense of I really like the taste of it. I do not like how it impacts me at all. So that I've always had a struggle with that. And then also I am a super lightweight. I can drink like 1 drink and then I feel super tipsy already, which is good for me. But it still impacts me. So it still impacts my sleep and it still impacts how I feel the next day. So starting to reduce your caffeine and alcohol intake is super important. Caffeine. Just talked with a friend about this yesterday. I am someone that drinks mostly decaf during the week. During the weekend, I have no problem drinking a normal cup of coffee. But during the week, when my nervous system is already heightened because I am working and there's different things that I need to take care of, when I drink normal coffee, it has a super crazy effect on my anxiety levels. Can't explain why, I just know that that's the way it is. And after years, I think, of ignoring that and just feeling uncomfortable or having a stomach ache and not feeling good about myself, I realized it had something to do with coffee. But because I like the the whole process of making a coffee. I love the coffee smell. I love to put some half and half in my coffee and to sip it away. I am drinking decaf and it makes me feel so much better. So much better. Made a huge difference in my life, made a huge difference in many of my clients' lives. And I know it will make a huge difference in your life if you feel like coffee has an effect on you. Maybe you feel like it doesn't have an effect on you. Maybe you've never really noticed or paid attention to it and observed how coffee actually makes you feel. So maybe this is an invitation to do all of that, to really decide, does coffee really not have an effect on you, or have you just ignored it until this point? Okay. And then alcohol, same thing, right? A lot of people say, oh, it doesn't have an effect on me. But again, if you listen to that podcast episode with Matt Walker and Joe Rogan, you'll learn how much of an effect alcohol has on your sleep, and you'll probably never touch alcohol ever again. So yeah, I'm actually really proud to say that I don't drink a lot, and I do actually drink from time to time because I really like the taste of a glass of wine, or I like the ritual of having a cocktail with a friend. But I feel like I always suffer the consequences. So yeah, it's interesting, but I know that it has a profound effect on my nervous system, so I really try to reduce that. All right, so the next thing that I want to talk with you about is to practice self-care. Well, we talk always about self-care. Now, hopefully you understand why self-care helps you to regulate your nervous system. Self-care basically helps you to create space for yourself to recover and do something that brings you joy. And that's why self-care is not equal to meditation, yoga, breathing, those kind of things, or exercise, right? Oftentimes we mention that as well in that regard. It is really whatever it is for you. So I would love to invite you right now to either take a piece of paper and a pen when you have the possibility to do that, or to open a little note on your phone, or to do it mentally in your head if you're driving your car, and think about 5 things that you enjoy to do. 5 things. Maybe it is singing, maybe it is taking a bubble bath, maybe it's talking to a friend, maybe it is exercise, maybe it is yoga, maybe it is meditation. It's all allowed. Everything is allowed. There's no right or wrong. As long as, and I don't want to see on this list, I like to watch TV, I like to go shopping. Those are things that are not really self-care. Okay. And we can talk about this for a while. But if you are sitting already in front of a screen for 7 or 8 hours in the day, sitting in front of another screen for another 3 hours, not moving your body, is not a good way to practice self-care. Okay. It always really depends on the intention. And trust me, I love to watch TV too, but it would never be on my list of self-care items. Because self-care is really investing time in yourself. It's reflection. It could be journaling, could be even be a self-care item for you, or it could be to make a cup of coffee or a cup of tea and sit in silence, sit reflecting, sit with your journal, sit and watch a YouTube video and learn something or take action on something, right? So self-care is an important topic because when you pick the right self-care items that are right for you, then you will help your nervous system regulate itself. And that's why we're talking today in this podcast, because it is really, really important that you're starting to do that in order to show up differently. Part of self-care can be, let me rephrase this. Part of self-care can be deep breathing, meditation, and yoga. If you are curious to explore that, especially breathing and meditation, I actually just recorded a meditation for my YouTube channel to regulate your nervous system. If you're curious what that kind of meditation looks like, specifically for the nervous system, check that one out. I'll make sure to link it in the show notes today as well. And yeah, those 3 tools are, of course, part of regulating your nervous system as well. But if you don't enjoy it, don't do it. Because if you have stress by forcing yourself to sit in meditation, then that's not the right thing for you, okay? So pick something that brings you joy and that actually makes you feel good about yourself. And then the last thing that I want to mention today, and the last thing I want to share with you today, is to eat a healthy diet. Yes, eating healthy is also part of regulating your nervous system, because if you eat unhealthy foods and your body is super overwhelmed with sugars and salts and all the kind of bad things, then it's going to have it will take longer to regulate your nervous systems. So a healthy diet can help you to improve your mood and energy levels. Make sure that you eat plenty of fruits, vegetables, and whole grains. We all know these things, right? That this is not new information for you. You've heard this before. Maybe you've never made the connection to the nervous system and to nervous system regulation. So now you make it because you are listening to this podcast episode. But at the end of the day, the reason why we're doing these things is because they actually help you to be the best version of yourself. They help you to regulate your nervous system and to show up centered and good and energized and recovered. And this is something that you don't do once a year going on vacation, right? Because this is the misconception that a lot of people have about self-care. They think, I'll go on vacation once a year for a week and I'll do all of these different things. No, absolutely not. It is the daily habits that determine what your life is. So take a look at your habits, at your daily habits. How often do you go outside? Do you go outside at all? Are you eating a healthy diet? Are you moving your body? Are you investing in self-care? How much alcohol and caffeine are you consuming? How much sleep are you getting? Those are the habits that make all the difference. And those are the habits that help you to regulate your nervous system. I'm sorry to disappoint if you had other thoughts, if you expected a different answer, because it's the simple tools that are sometimes so hard to integrate. I know. And don't expect of yourself that you'll change all of these things in a day-to-day, right? It is about now actually, let's do this. Now I want you to ask yourself the question, what is one thing that you can do differently? What is one thing that resonated most with you? What is one thing where you're like, yeah, I should really work on this? Maybe it's sleep. Maybe it's caffeine. Maybe it's going outside in nature. What is just one thing? Pick one thing this week and just focus on that. And spend those 15, 20 minutes to go and do that or not do it, right? Depending on what it is. If it is drinking caffeine, then try to not do it, or try to get some decaf and test it out for yourself. See how that makes you feel. Because action beats inaction. So act now and make a difference in your life. Change your life. That's why you're listening to this podcast episode. That is why you are already investing the time to invest in yourself. But if you just listen and you don't do, nothing in your life still will change. So it is really, really important that you're starting to take action on these different pieces on how you can regulate your nervous system. This is all I wanted to share with you today. So thank you so much for being here today. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast episode. If you found it helpful, please share it with a friend or a family member or a colleague and tell them, hey, there's this really cool podcast I listened to. I think this would be something for you as well. Give me a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, on iTunes. I would really, really appreciate that. I know that so many of you are listening to this podcast, so I really, really love to hear you, and I love to read your testimonials and your reviews. So thank you so much for doing that. And that's all I wanted to share with you today. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for taking action. Thank you so much for taking care of yourself. It's the biggest gift you can give to yourself and to others. And I hope to hear you in the next podcast.